DJ Dewey Rock on the track.
Welcome to Emerge Podcast 360. I'm your host, Maserati. Want to thank you for tuning in. No matter where you are in this metaverse world, we're going to continue to bring you the best quality content and formula that we know how. This is being brought to you by Involved Social and Civic Club, where we understand the social and civic needs of love, learn, live, and laugh. We want to thank you for tuning in for this special episode of Pioneer Wednesday. And do we have a legend, a pioneer, an icon for the city of Strop City throughout the years? We want to thank you for all the likes, shares, and subscriptions on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and now TikTok. And once again, we want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. And do we have a exclusive and special guest for you guys tonight? I want to introduce him by letting you guys know he was appointed by former President Barack Obama and was confirmed as to serve in the Senate to serve as the USDA Rural Development State Director for Louisiana. He served as mayor from Bastrop, as we know, Strop City from 1989 to 2009. He previously spent 20 years in the Morehouse Parish School District, serving a variety of roles, including assistant principal, curriculum supervisor, and co-director of personnel. He belongs to several boards from the National Conference of Black Mayors all the way to the Democratic State Central Committee. He also has his own business, extension brand of a disinfectant company, Focola, F-O-C-O-L-A, and I'm going to get him to explain that to y'all. And he's a graduate of Grambling State University, Louisiana Tech University, and Northeast Louisiana University, where he studied at all three universities. He's also a LMA Executive Board, and he is on the 2009 LMA's President's Award. I give you the husband of Miss Barbara A. White and the father of Stacy, Ian, and Faith Angel, the former and the first African-American mayor of Strop City, Louisiana. I give you Clarence W. Hawkins. Mayor Hawkins, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. That means I'm old, all that stuff you read. I guess I've been around for a long time.
Oh, man, if I tell it all, we wouldn't have a story, because your resume, it's a book.
Well, it's a life. I'm almost 80 years old, so that means I've been doing something during these 80 years. So it's really reflective to hear you start talking about that. All that, it reminds me of when I came to Bastrop and what I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for opportunity, and I appreciate you mentioning those things. Thank you for allowing me to be on your program.
Yes, sir. Anytime. It's our honor to have someone of your stature. And I know a lot of people know you. You've been with the Obama administration. We're going to get into all that, but kind of share with the people how it was for this latter generation. We especially want to know, us young folks, how was it for Clarence W. Hawkins growing up over there in Mississippi?
Well, first, I'm Leo and Ruby's baby boy. My dad's name was Leo Hawkins, and my mother's name was Ruby McLaughlin Hawkins. I was the son of Black man and woman born in Mississippi back in the 40s, and experiencing what Black people experienced during that time. We lived in Mississippi. My father was a Methodist minister. My mom was a domestic. She worked in houses. She worked for Miss Priester and raised Doug and Pam, but he was a minister and construction worker. And we moved to Louisiana in the mid-50s to pastor a church down in Greensburg, Louisiana. That's in St. Helena Parish. And I graduated from Helena High School, and went to Grambling. But my growing up in Mississippi, I was protected. I didn't experience any more of the discrimination than any other Black kid did during that time. My parents, and those who were around me taught us, now it's necessary for parent to have the talk with especially black youngsters. And it was just, this is the way things are. This is where you go. This is how you act. This is where we reside. And this is the door we go in, the places we go. This is the movie theater that we go to. And when we travel, this is how we do. And you can't go in, if there's a restroom for colored people, you find the colored restroom. If not, you wait till you can pull off on the side of the road and do what you have to do and keep on going. But that was just the way that it was. I didn't know that I was really discriminated against because that was the way things were. You know, black people lived in one section of Meridian and Jackson, where I went to junior high school and elementary school. In Greensburg, this is where I went to school, and these are the places that we go, and this is how you act. Never been physically attacked, but I knew that there was a difference. When my mom went to work for Miss Priester, and Miss Priester brought her home, my mom was in the back of the car, and the kids didn't know any better, so Doug and Pam went in the back with her. You know, I knew that my mom went to work, and she took care of the family. And when they went on vacation, they would take her to keep the kids, and that was just the way that it was. But my parents and my community taught me values, respect for all people, rules, which were necessary for survival, serve other people. You're not responsible for how other people treat you, but you're responsible for how you treat and how you deal with circumstances. So that helped me throughout my life. The public schools that I went to were black schools, which experienced things that black schools experience. You know, we would get textbooks when I was in school, and they would have been used by the kids at Greensburg High School or at the other non-black schools. When I started teaching here in 1965, I know I skipped from my high school to teaching, but we would get schools from Central Junior High School or from Bastrop High School, or we'd get desks that had been at those schools. And that was the way that it was. But I knew, and I predicted to my students that were in my classroom that one day things would change. I graduated high school, and we lived about 50 miles from Baton Rouge in Southern. And when I was in high school, we used to go to Southern University often for competition, the LIALO rallies. They used to have competitions for students, and you competed on your local level and your parish level, and then you went to state for competition. So we were always in and out of Southern. And Southern was a big city school, and I just didn't fit there, but I had an occasion to visit Grambling, and I felt at home there. And so when I graduated high school, I chose to come to Grambling College at that time, and I felt really comfortable there and had wonderful experiences, and did my student teaching in Bastrop in 1965. And I was hired the next year and had contact with wonderful people: William Alexander, William Washington, Mattie DeBose, and Miss Burks, and Miss Caldwell, and Ora Evans, and just people who helped mold me, who helped guide me. Payne Montgomery and Willie Fitch, and people that you've heard of, Charles Strickland. And they helped guide and mold me, and took me, a little boy at 22, and gave me opportunity and exposure. And they were my models. And so they're foundational to me. Them and folks in the church back in Mississippi and in Greensburg and St. Mary's CME Church, I stand on their shoulders. I'm a reflection of them.
Most definitely. And you know, we had Miss Ora on the show, and I would like to get Dr. Alexander on the show, you know, before we take intermission. But Mr. Hawkins, who would, you know, you name those people that mold you and help you, but coming from Mississippi, rural Mississippi, who was your most inspiring person that led you to where you are now, guided to where you are now?
No one person. I'm a composite. I'm a composite of all of the people who have touched my life, not just teachers, not just school church people, but neighbors, people, Mr. Holloway, who lived on the street, Mr. McDonald, Miss Susie, who lived around the corner, who took me by the hand, Mr. Stallworth, who was my guidance counselor, Mr. Wicker, who was my principal, Mr. Crawley, Mr. Sims. I'm a composite of all those folks. Mr. Luther Smith in St. Mary Church, Mr. Perry Smith, just all the folks that I've come into contact in the school system. William Washington, as I said, William Alexander. Payne Montgomery was my supervising teacher. He and Miss Julia May Smith were the first black people to be elected to city council here in Bastrop. Lee Locke and Fred Montgomery, they were models for me. And I'm a composite of all those folks. I saw them, how they interacted, how they reacted, how they spoke out. Clyde Gray, General Caldwell, folks that you wouldn't think of, but they were the folks who made me help to make me who I am. Miss Velma Adams, she was Mr. Adams, who was principal at Morehouse. That was his wife. And when he died, I never met him. I came to Bastrop, started my student teaching on the day he died. And then Mrs. Adams molded me and gave me opportunities. Mr. O.L. Harper, white guy, who was superintendent. He was one who recognized something in me that he thought was beneficial and gave me the opportunity to go to Bastrop High School. Ms. Elva Humphreys, she saw something in me and promoted me to curriculum supervisor, assistant superintendent. Jerry Atkins, Bob Brazier, black and white people saw evidently something in me that they thought had potential, and they said, okay, well, let's let him try this. Let's give him this opportunity. And all I was doing was following the rules. The people who made the biggest impact on my life, and this goes without saying, were my mom and dad. My mother was a mediator. I never saw my mom and dad argue. My dad was a popular young preacher who was typical, not typical, but a young preacher who was popular and was just all over the place. But she never let whatever was going on, the criticisms, the accusations, touch her. And now that I'm older and I realize some things that were happening back in those times, I just say it's amazing that she maintained the composure and respect that she had and displayed. She died at 49, and my dad died at 61. So I didn't have. I reflect now, and I was telling one of my friends who works with me, I wish that my parent had been alive long enough to see me be given these opportunities that I've been given. When my dad died, I think I was maybe assistant principal, but they never saw me as mayor or as the first black president of LMA or the first black state director of rural development or, any of the other firsts that I had an opportunity to serve in. But those are the folks. I'm a composite. There's not one person that I could say who put their hands on me and guided me. There were a lot of hands that slapped me on my butt, on my head, and everywhere else, saying this is the way you're supposed to do. They were human beings. Yes, they had their strengths and their weaknesses. None of them were perfect. None of them were perfect, as we aren't. But the positive things that I saw in them, and the negative things, the negative things that I saw, the bad choices that they made, I learned from those, just as, I learned from the good choices. And I hope that people see that in me and you and everybody else, because I've made a lot of choices that weren't good. And hopefully I've made some that were good and that are responsible for some of the successes I hope that we've had.
Yes, sir. No doubt. We all make choices for what we think may be the right choice. But, one thing, one of my good friends always say, good intentions pave the pathway to hell.
The road to hell.
The road to hell, and sometimes our good intentions take us on that path, but luckily with the right sound mind, faith, and prayer, you made it out. and you're still here. And we're going to take an intermission. When we come back, we want you to take us back in time from becoming a mayor on to being a part of President Barack Obama administration after your tenure here as the mayor.
I appreciate that. I look forward to it.
We'll be right back with the first Afro-American mayor of old Strop City, Louisiana, when we return after this message. It's Clarence W. Hawkins.
Immerse 360 Podcasts focuses on uplifting rural and urban areas and dire conditions with no solutions by shedding light on pioneers, athletes, and political figures who have made an impression on Northeast Louisiana and surrounding areas. Immerse understands the social and civic needs to love, learn, live, and laugh. So tap in every Sunday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. on all social networks and platforms. Always remember, Immerse 360. DJ Dewey Rock on the track. DJ Dewey Rock on the track.
Welcome back to Immerse 360. This portion of the show is being brought to you by Brachelle Family Insurance Agency, Morehouse Community Development, and Bro Inc. Photography. And shout out to Kick Thrones of Bastrop, Louisiana. We want to give a special thanks to Miss Aquisa Gibbons of Above Average Healthcare of Carthage, Texas. We're still here with the first Afro-American mayor of the beloved Strop City, Louisiana, and former administrator for the Barack Obama administration, Mr. Sir Clarence W. Hawkins. Mayor Hawkins, take us back in time now from being the mayor of Strop City all the way to becoming a part of the Obama administration.
Okay. As I said, I came here in 1965, and in Grambling, I majored in what they call social studies, social sciences. So I taught history, geography, and civics, in Louisiana history and stuff like that. So I've always been interested in government. And so when I came to Morehouse, Payne Montgomery, as I mentioned before, was my supervising teacher. And he was mainly the main social studies teacher at Morehouse. But when William Washington became principal and the school needed to expand, Mr. Washington decided to hire another full-time social studies teacher, and I had been student teaching here, and I was hired. And I came in and taught mainly civics and world history and Louisiana history, as I said. And so I've always been interested in the way government worked and how things function. So I really emphasize the importance of civic participation in government and voting and understanding how the government works, because effective government controls and dictates everything that we do. You know, it's infrastructure, it's safety, security, health, welfare, environment, the whole 9 yards. So I taught that the last few years of integration and the last few years of segregation and the first couple of years of integration. And as I mentioned earlier, Mr. O.L. Harper came to my classroom once, and he was intrigued with my teaching, and he kind of started following me. And when an opportunity came for a vacancy at Bastrop High School, Ivor Smith was promoted to the central office in federal programs, and he selected me to go over to Bastrop High School to be assistant principal there. That was in 1971. And as you can imagine, when I came to Morehouse Parish, schools were segregated. Morehouse High School had all of the students who went through high school in the city of Bastrop, all the black students. They came through Morehouse. When schools integrated, all of the junior high kids in the city of Bastrop came through Morehouse, Bastrop Junior High at that time, and all of the high school students came through Bastrop High School. So I had an opportunity to interact with generations of black folks and white people for basically 17 years. during the segregated time, all the black folks who came through school and their parents, I dealt with them. And after the integration, all the white and black people who came through. So, and I tried to be a person who was caring and serving and treated people with equality and dignity and recognizing them and giving them support and doing what we're supposed to do as human beings. So after teaching and being advanced, and after 20 years, I realized after 20 years, and I was in the position that I was in the school board office, curriculum supervisor, as I said, in some parishes it's called assistant superintendent. 20 years, I was 42 years old, and I said, okay, that was 1985. And I said, I can't see myself staying in this position because they weren't about to elect a black superintendent back in 85. And I just couldn't see myself staying in that position for the rest of my teaching career. And I decided to retire. In Louisiana, you can retire with benefits after 20 years. And I went into private business. I went to work with a company that served the education community with insurance needs, automobile, homeowners, annuities, hospitalization, investments, property insurance, the whole 9 yards. And I did that with the Horace Mann companies, the companies that was named after the founder of public education. In 1988, Mr. John Bond, who was mayor at that time, had decided that he was not going to run again. And my friend at that time, Henry Cotton, who's still my friend, we were downtown Bastrop, and, I'm always speaking to people, and we were standing up in front of Seligman's, and people were passing by, and I, hey, how you doing, so-and-so, hey, black and white. And Cotton said, you know everybody, don't you? I said, well, I've been around. He said, you ought to run for mayor. I said, no way, I don't want to be in politics, because politics is dirty and all that kind of stuff. He said, no. I said, well, I don't want to have to be lying to people to get elected. He said, no, what you need to do is let your work speak for you. And if you deserve to be reelected, don't make up anything after, at each term, let your work speak for you and go from there. So I ran, and it was unheard of because there had not been a black person to run for mayor in the history of Bastrop that I'm aware of.
This region, not only Bastrop, during that time, this region, you did that.
Well, Tallulah and Lake Providence, but they had black mayors. But anyway, I don't want to be worldwide. But anyway, and so Reverend E.W. Smith, who was a prominent person at that time, said, and he said, we need to have somebody run for mayor. We don't need to let white people think that we're not interested. He said, I'm gonna run. I said, well, I'm gonna run too. He said, well, I'm going to run because we need to show them that we're interested. I said, well, I'm going to run because I want to win. And so that was a debate, not a debate, but discussion. He said, well, why? He said, well, why don't you step down and let me run? I said, no. He said, well, why don't you ask me to step down? I said, no, I'm not going to do that because this is America and everybody has a right to run. So short story, he decided not to run, and I came full blast running for the position of mayor in 88. And I'd campaign, and we walk in the street. The only way I knew how to campaign was get in touch with people and let them know. Some people gave contributions to my campaign. I bought the signs and bought ads in the newspaper, was on the radio, because the radio station was there at that time. And people would say, man, they ain't going to let you win. I said, they're not going to let me win. I said, what day? Them. I said, well, I tell you what. I said, well, think about this. I said, now, if you vote for me and she vote for me, and if I get enough votes, they ain't got nothing to do with it. Y'all or we can win this. In that election, Stan Nedry, who was chief of police, Zane Tubbs, who was on the city council, Jerry Jordan was on the city council, Stan, Zane, Jerry Jordan, me, and another white guy ran for mayor. And I think the three white candidates felt that they were going to divide the white vote, 1/3 equally. And they figured that whichever one of them could get the black vote would win. And each one of them had, credibility and reputation in the black community. And so, so here I pop up in there, and my strategy was to campaign with everybody, and hopefully I would get the majority of the black vote and some white vote. And it worked out that way. In the primary, I had the most votes. I had 1,800 votes, and Miss Jerry Jordan was second. She had 700. But neither one of us got 50% plus one, so there had to be a runoff. And in the runoff, I won by 200 and some votes. The runoff was naturally lower turnout, but that's how it happened. And everybody was, well, not scared, because they didn't know what to expect. And I didn't know what to expect either, but I said, okay, this is humanly possible. I'm a human being, and people love Bastrop, and so we're going to work together. And when I came in office, I took office and I called all the workers together, and I said, look, I'm assuming that you're here because you're competent. I'm assuming that you're here because Mayor Bond felt that you could do the job. You have a job, because everybody thought, well, he going to fire all the white folks and bring the black people in. That would be crazy. No way. We didn't know, all black folks didn't know what to do. And I had not been mayor before, so I was going to depend on everybody, black and white, to help me lead the city, not run the city. And it worked out. Some people left, some black people left, some white people left, because they didn't want to be a part of it. But we survived. We survived for 20 years. We had some good experiences and bad experiences. The garment factory closed not because of anything that we did, but because of global economic conditions. President Bill Clinton initiated my definition. He initiated NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, or whatever. And most of the cut and sew organizations, if you think about the garment factories that were all over North Louisiana, in fact, they start cutting down, the jockey shorts and the Fruit of the Loom places all over. They closed and went to Mexico so they could make the garments down there cheaper and bring them back in. So that was a blow, but the people who worked there were able to transition. They got into medical areas and education and all kinds of stuff. So we kept going along, and then the mill and the National Paper Company decided to restructure, and they consolidated their mills. They closed Pineville, they closed Camden, they closed Pine Bluff, they closed Natchez, and mills all over the place. And that devastation was really impactful, and Bastrop hadn't fully recovered from that yet, but that's a national trend. Smokestacks are leaving the South, and the South has to find a way to re-identify itself as far as the economy is concerned. So, but we did a lot of good things. We built a new fire station. We remodeled the gyms. We remodeled the municipal center. We paved streets and just bought police cars, expanded the police department and the fire department, and we hope brought equity and inclusion to all of our citizens. And that's the legacy that I hope that we left. And the other legacy is being the first is important, but you don't want to be the first and the last. So I'm happy that my example was followed, and you say reasonably, but that was the beginning of African-American mayors being more prolific throughout North Louisiana and Louisiana period, and the nation.
Right, and I know you don't want to take all the credit, but I'm a historian, Mayor Hawkins, and you set that precedent. Those guys came later. I know the history of this area from 1945. We're not going to get into it, but for you to be a black mayor in this area, man, you was our Barack Obama. Can I put it that way? You was Barack Obama to us. I remember my parents were elated when my grandparents. I remember that as a little boy. It was like the Savior had come.
Wow. Well, I'm so thankful that people, that we worked together. There were no scandals during that time. And I hope I wasn't an embarrassment. I hope that we were able to provide an image, and also, and you kind of alluded to this, letting it be known that we do have ability, even though our circumstances and all that might have been different and difficult. We have the ability, And if we're willing to work hard and work with people and with God's help, we can do anything that we want to do. I hope that's the message. If my life has a message, I hope that that's the message that it leaves. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's what you strive to do and the faith that you have and your willingness to work with and for people and have a servant's heart that you can do anything you want to do.
Most definitely. And Mayor Hawkins, that's why it was very important that we have you on the podcast. Like I said earlier, I wish we could have started off with you, but we started off with another great guy that was the mayor in Henry Cotton. And you guys, regardless of the fact of how people may perceive things now, but the things you have accomplished, you have set a landmark for Bastrop, Louisiana throughout the country and parts of the world. And we're going to take another intermission. And when we come back, we want to get your final thoughts. We want to talk about your experiences with the Barack Obama administration and what are some of your heights of your career and things you didn't expect as being a mayor and what you want to see happen with your beloved Strop City as we go on.
Okay, look forward to it.
We'll be right back with former mayor and the first Afro-American mayor of Bastrop, Louisiana, Clarence W. Hawkins, when we return. Welcome back. This portion of the show is being brought to you by Stepping Stones LLC, Northeast Counseling, and guess what, and guess who? Yes, we'd like to give a shout out to Patrick Jones, PJ, and G. Wayne the Hustler. We're still here with former mayor and the first African-American mayor of Strop City, Louisiana, Mr. Clarence W. Hawkins. Mayor Hawkins, we went to intermission. You done brung us through the capsule. And now we want to know, how was it and what was your experience like being part of President Barack Obama administration?
It was a wonderful experience. You know, you mentioned me being married to Barbara Wright Hawkins, and I need to say that none of the things that I did was a part of would have been possible without her support. We've been married, it'll be 57 years in November. And she has been by my side and supportive and along with me and giving me encouragement and giving me corrections and directions and purpose. And out of this marriage, we have two wonderful children. Our son, Stacy Hawkins, who did his early education here and left here and went to Louisiana school and went into the Air Force, went to the Air Force Academy and has been in the Air Force for over 30-some years now, and he's a lieutenant general, 3-star general, and still serving. He's married to Natalie Coleman Hawkins from here in Bastrop, and they have two wonderful children. They've been my inspiration. Our daughter, Tanya, went to school here for most of her education and went to Louisiana school. She went to Tulane and then went to LSU Medical Center and is a obstetrician gynecologist in Monroe and has practiced there and has been involved in public health and service. And she has 3 children. Stacy has 2 boys that are, one's about to graduate undergrad, another one is master's. They're just doing well. And Tanya has 3 children. Her daughter's second year at Xavier, son's a freshman at Neville, and out of a baby boy who's taking over kindergarten somewhere. But those have been my inspiration and my motivation, and all the things that I've done have been to try to make them proud and to leave a legacy of a given example to them as to what we can accomplish and to motivate them as well as others. So when the Obama administration came in, he practiced inclusion, and he wanted his administration to be reflective of the population that he served. And presidents have the ability to make appointments to federal positions throughout the federal government. Some of them they do directly, and some they do by allowing people who have been instrumental in the campaign or in the administration to make choices. And each state was allowed, a person in each state was allowed to make recommendations for various federal positions. Karen Carter Peterson, who was a state legislator, and she's had some other situations recently, but she was allowed to make a recommendation to President Obama's administration for the position of state director for USDA rural development. And USDA rural development is, as it says, is an agency that's responsible for developing programs in rural America, Louisiana at this point. So they were looking for someone who had rural orientation, who had leadership experiences and all that. So by Bastrop allowing me to lead it, and when I was being the leader of this community, not bossing the community, but representing the community, I was allowed to travel. I went to China to do some observations, and went to South America and just all kinds of places when I was mayor. I wanted Bastrop to be known not just from its own, so I ran for and was elected the first African-American president of the board of directors of the Louisiana Municipal Association, which is the association of all the cities, towns, and villages in the state. So I was the first African-American there. And when I was in that position, I would frequently go to Washington to meet with federal officials and all that kind of thing. All over the state of Louisiana, with the governor area in Louisiana and other states. So after I left the mayorship and they were looking for somebody in the Obama administration, they wanted somebody who had experiences. And my name was submitted, and I was selected. And I guess because of the opportunities that I had and the reputation that we had, that Bastrop allowed me to have. So there were 50 state directors. There were only, for the first time in history, there were 6 African-American state directors during the Obama administration: Mississippi, Arkansas, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. So we represented our various states, and we traveled from state at different times with states and meeting with Mr. Obama and his administration, and making people aware of the programs and opportunities that existed for folks in rural Louisiana using taxpayer dollars. We built homes. Many people probably listen to this podcast made loans through rural development and were able to buy or rehab their houses. We've helped finance schools in Morehouse Parish. We've made a loan to the Morehouse General Hospital loan grant, probably of almost $20 million to do some renovations there. We started making opportunities for the city of Bastrop, Morehouse Parish, Sheriff's Department, police, jury, water districts to get funds to rehab and upgrade their water systems and roads, and buy police cars and fire trucks and equipment and all of that. So that's how we helped. But it was about delivering the services that the federal government provides back to citizens, communicating, letting people know what programs were. Service is what government is all about, and that's been my mantra, my motto. Service is the rent I pay to stay here. If you help enough other people get what they want, you can get everything that you want. Building networks, serving people. That's the key to success. That's justifying your existence, and that's my effort to justify the blessing that I have to be here today by serving others or serving humankind. But that's what the Obama administration was about, and hopefully we made a difference all over the state of Louisiana, building schools, libraries, renovating buildings, helping people get homes for the first time, hospitals, you name it, we were there. Businesses, that was what we were about. And I'm glad to have been a part of that.
Most definitely. And we are very proud of the accomplishments that you have made and the things that you have rendered to us here in Strop City, Louisiana. And we like to always ask our guests before we let them go, looking through a glass, you came through segregation into integration. You taught for 20 plus years, and you went on, became the mayor, and you went on to the Obama administration, and you returned home, and you're still active in the community, putting on forums and panels, trying to come up with solutions. Looking through a glass, what would you like to see happen with your beloved Strop City?
I want us, and I think that we're starting, I want us to realize the capacity that we have. You can't go anywhere in the United States without running into somebody from Bastrop who's doing great things there. Just there are people who are doing great things here in Bastrop locally. But we are providing the world with talent and expertise that you would not believe. But we are our own worst enemy. We talk about ourselves and we talk about how bad Bastrop is, but I don't plan to leave. This is the only land that I own. I plan to be here until it's time for me to transition. But I want us to realize that we have capacity. We're human beings, and anything that anybody else can do, we can do. The grass is not greener across the parish line, across the state line, over in Atlanta. If that were true, people, when they retire, wouldn't come back here. Everybody knows somebody who has come back to Bastrop Morehouse Parish that left here earlier and they went somewhere else to get jobs. But now that they've come back here, evidently there's some good stuff here. But we need to first take advantage of the talent pool that exists, not only from those folks who've come back, but the potential that we have here, and make Bastrop the great place that it is. We just don't realize how good and how great we are and what we have to offer, and stop criticizing ourselves. We're never going to be perfectly coming together, but if each one of us does his or her own part, don't expect for us to come together and have a big rally and say, okay, we're going to all do this, because we're going to all have different opinions as to how to do it. But everybody do something good. Do your thing. Keep the city clean. Treat your neighbor right. Help each other out. Don't criticize. Stop fighting among ourselves. Don't major in minor stuff. Just let's do our part to treat people the way that we want to be treated, treat our land the way we want it to be treated. And those folks who live away from here, come back and clean up your property. You don't want junk in your next way you live now. So clean up and let's take care of each other and love each other. And that's the vision that I have. My vision is one day we're going to realize how great we are individually and collectively. And we just need to do it and continue to be great. Continue to be great.
Yes, sir. And you have done great things, and we understand where you're coming from. And one thing I want to ask you before you go, do you see anyone being groomed correctly to stand in your footsteps, Mayor Cotton, and some of these other positions where the elderly, constituents will still have to hold these positions? Do you see anyone being groomed?
I see a lot of potential. I see a lot of people who have the potential, and we need to stop trying to find fault in people, but trying to see that positive potential, the positive things about them. And when we see somebody that might be making bad choices, making bad decisions, let's correct them with love and say, look, you have a lot of potential. We can be great, but just really think about what it is that you're doing. So no one person, all of us have the seed of greatness in us. And it's just a matter of us looking for that greatness and not falling victim to reacting and finding negatives, but being positive and helping each other out. Let's lift each other up and not be that crab syndrome and not fall victim to the Willie Lynch philosophy. And let's lift each other up. I can think of young men and women, both black and white, that have potential, but we need to love and appreciate what we have rather than, I said this in a group that I was in the other day. If you cook something and you had food to serve and you wanted to serve it to other folks, you wouldn't talk about the food, because if you talk about the food you got, ain't nobody else gonna want to eat it. So if we live here in Bastrop and if we talk bad about Bastrop, nobody else is gonna want to taste Bastrop. So we need to lift ourselves up, think positive about ourselves and the community. One time there was pride in being from Strop City, being a Mighty Ram, or being a Delta Mustang. But rarely do we talk positively about ourselves, and we start believing that ourselves, and we need to stop that.
Most definitely, and that's heartfelt, and you're very right about, I always like to say, we do enough damage in-house, and that's understandable because we're going through the struggles. But one thing, Mayor Hawkins, I don't like those distant lovers, those people that left the city and they have all these ideas and ideologies and concepts and perceptions about Bastrop, but they don't come with any solutions. And I can kind of take it from the people that's here in the mud with us. We need to kind of damper it down some, but those outside people, we know you're natives, but we don't need that extra backlash coming from you and you're not here with us. Do you agree?
I totally agree. And, when you look on Facebook and look at social media, all these folks who leave here, I'm not condemning them, but they always interested in what's happening to Bastrop. Well, come back and don't say what's happening to Bastrop. Be a part of what's happening in Bastrop. The expertise that you have in Atlanta and Houston and Austin and in Las Vegas and Detroit, bring that expertise back here, because people need whatever it is that you're selling. They need the nursing and the nursing home and the psychological training and the hamburgers and the manufacturing that you do. They need that knowledge that you have. Knowledge serves no purpose unless it's used or shared. Mm-hmm. Knowledge has no purpose unless it's used or shared. I can know how to build a car, but if I don't build that car, or if I don't share knowledge of how to build that car, it don't do me no good to know it.
I gotta remember that. Hold on, I gotta write that down right now. Knowledge is. And I don't even have a pen. Any other time I have a pen, right? Knowledge is neither shared.
Knowledge has no purpose. Knowledge has no purpose unless it's used or shared.
Knowledge has no purpose unless it's used or shared. I got it. And
that's not original. That's just putting it into words.
Yes, sir. I know it's something profound. I know it's profound. If you didn't put it out there, it's very profound.
I appreciate you for giving me this opportunity to ramble on. The ramblings of an old man, man. This is wonderful. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
That's what it's all about. Look, if I don't share the history, or we don't share our own history, who will?
You're the perfect example. You're using your knowledge of podcasts and media and communication. You're using that knowledge and you're fulfilling your obligation. So this is your purpose in life. And I applaud you, admire you, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate you for stopping through. And hopefully when we get everything together, we can start having some panels and some forums and some discussions and really sit down and put these minds together and come up with some solutions for old beloved Strop City.
Well, I want to take you up on that, because I have some ideas and I'd like to be a part of some convenings where people of similar minds just get together and start talking and communicating, because we don't have the print media anymore and we don't have a voice. we don't hear stuff. Thank you for doing what you're doing, because this is a megaphone to get information out there. But we got to figure out a way to start communicating across racial lines, gender lines, church lines, and because if we don't communicate, we're going to die, because we don't know about the roadblock or the big hole around the corner. But we got to share that. So thank you for doing what you're doing, and I appreciate you very much.
Yes, sir. And you take care, Mayor, and hopefully we'll get back with you real soon.
Again, stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you now.
God bless. I'm your host, Maserati. We want to thank you for tuning in for this portion of Pioneer Wednesday. We want to thank you guys for staying tuned in, and shout out to Mayor Hawkins for the great accomplishments that he has done. We want to give a special thanks to Restoration of Hope Community Center here in Bastrop, Louisiana, and we want to give some shout outs to our Facebook supporters, Brass Section, Stardom Network, Psycho Astronauts, Line Eye, Club Planet, Funk Skills, Real Talk with Miss Niecy, and Yo Looking Ass Entertainment. This has been brought to you by 44 Million ENT and Involved Social and Civic Club, where we understand the social and civic needs of love, learn, live, and laugh. Until next time, y'all stay involved. Y'all stay encouraged. And most of all, y'all stay immersed. We out of this thing.
I was raised in the ghetto. I've been to the bottom. Ain't nothing at the bottom for me. Only tell all my problems. Seems he can only solve it for me. I was raised in the ghetto. See, struggle ain't no stranger to me. I grind hard for the paper. I think the top is where I'm destined to be.
I ain't never been no crash, I'm in love with fast money. I hate to ask for something, nobody gave me nothing. Life on the line, I'm busting. I done been through enough shit. I ain't trying to be no upset. I don't trust anything suspect. Lost some years to the jungle. Brought some tears to my mama. Came home, tried to be humble, but I kept going under. Chip on my shoulder.